Okay, I think we're recording. Welcome, everyone. This is Discussion with P.L. Stewart, the author of A Drowned Kingdom Saga. I'm super excited to be talking with you. We're going to go over getting into the indie world. We're going to be going over community and how to get involved, among a bunch of other book stuff. So let's get into it. Thank you for being here, PL.
Well, thank you so much, Cole. I'm so incredibly humbled to be here with you tonight.
Awesome, awesome. All right, let's start it off strong. Let me ask you real quick. So you are an indie author. What has your experience been like, both being an indie author but also being an indie reader? And I don't know how much indie books you've read before, but fill me in. Like, how'd you get started in the community? Let's just hear it.
Okay, I hopefully did my homework a bit before I got involved with writing. So after I figured out I was going to publish indie, then I did some research like, hey, well, guess what? You're going to be an indie author, and that's great. But other than your friends and family and work colleagues, maybe, no one's going to know about your work. And on top of that, how do you want to live your life as an indie author? Was not my full time job; it's a
Yeah.
hobby. But at the same time, how do you want to exist as an indie author? Do you want to be like, feel just you're there running your books and you're trying to promote your books? Perhaps you get a publicist to do it, so you don't have to be face to face as much.
Yep.
Or like what do you want it to look like? And to be honest with you, I hadn't thought as much about that part.
Hmm.
But my lovely wife and I, Debbie, who's my business manager, she's amazing. Love you, honey. If you watch this, um, we started talking. We plan everything together. I was like, well, social media seems to be the way. It's free for one,
Hmm.
and I think if I go there, it sounds like everything I've read online. You can find your tribe. You can find your people who are also indie authors who can give you support and guidance and just network and have a little online family, right? So
Yeah.
um, I started out predominantly on Twitter,
Okay.
and it's a weird feeling when you get on a social media platform and it feels like it's just you because you have no followers. You follow perhaps a bunch of people and you might have 5, 10, 15, 100, 300, 3,000 people you're following
Yeah.
and no one's following you yet and no one knows who you are. Potentially, right? You may have a
Yeah.
few friends that are also online that you know already, or but for me it's like in the writing community I knew nobody.
Yeah.
So I just did it. I didn't plan that way, but I said, well, at some point, someone will follow me. But I wasn't worried about that at the time. I just started following people I liked. I followed authors I liked. I started following people that I saw were readers, and they would post these wonderful posts about authors, how much they loved the book, and they would post reviews and things like that. So I started following those people too, especially if we had common tastes, and then commenting, "Hey, that was a great review you wrote," or just genuinely like that was awesome. And then they started following me, and then you get to know different people, and then you get to know authors, and then you also, I mean, hey, oh, PL, you're a writer too. Like, yeah, I'm writing a book. Okay, well, what's it about? And then I started posting snippets, like excerpts from my book, like teasers, to kind of get people hyped. And then of course you learn, oh well, you should tease the cover, and those are things that you learn from your indie author friends and colleagues and readers, right? And then it just grew organically from there, Cole. It just kind of just took off, and then
Yeah.
you find yourself. I found myself, anyways, getting into different spaces, like with bloggers and people who specifically review books, because I did have a bit of an interest in that. So
Hmm.
then started following them, started getting to those networks. Then I think where things really took off is I entered the self-published fantasy blog off contest, which is an incredible, probably the most prominent um, self-published indie fantasy competition out there, run by the amazing Mark Lawrence, international best-selling, traditionally published author. So kind and altruistic of him to create a contest that can shine a light on indie books.
Yeah.
And when you get there, you meet all these other indie authors that are in the contest. There's discords. There's all kinds. And you're commiserating and celebrating with people as they get knocked out, and it gets just it's just this thing
Yeah.
that it has a life of its own. And then it just kind of took off from there. And after I got eliminated, then it just so happened that the editor before I Go blog had liked my book and read and it's like just like my online presence, like, hey, would you like to be a member of our blog crew? And I was very honored. And then I became a member of Before Blog, and I'm an assistant editor there. And
Oh wow.
it just everything just kind of
Yeah.
happened organically, right? But it all started by getting online, and then I branched to other platforms, Instagram, Facebook. You just but all the while though, don't I'm not trying to attract or evade the fact that I'm still promoting my work,
Yeah.
right? I'm still promoting the John King saga and John King books, but what I was focused on was just being part of the community and just having fun and meeting people and learning from others and
Yeah.
just it's just a wonderful community.
Yeah. I think so far in my short time here, learning new perspectives from people has been my favorite thing. And that's why when I watch Philip Chase and I watch all of these discussions, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is so cool. Like I can learn from each individual person." But before I continue, I should have said this first. But can you tell people about your series because you deserve to be known as a person, so I want you to tell them about your series. So if you want to give like an elevator pitch or whatever, go ahead.
Oh well, thank you so much. I'm humbled, and thank you so much for including that in one of your videos and talk about my book. So I really appreciate it, and the review. So on Goodreads, that stuff means that's gold,
Yeah.
right? So, anyways, shameless self promo. I'm P.L. Stern, I'm the author of A John King, which is the first book in the John King saga, which is a 7 book epic fantasy series. The premise is essentially no big spoiler. In my version of Atlantis sinks. My version follows somewhat closely to Plato's original tale, but I do my own thing with it. But in any case, island sinks, but there's survivors, and the saga is about where the survivors go and where they do it. In my case, the survivors are led by this very flawed and bigoted prince, and he takes the survivors across the water to this new continent, and he wants to essentially reestablish his version of Atlantis. So which is his home world, his home island. The people there absolutely don't want him there because the Atlanteans have this horrible reputation of they're colonialists. They have a reputation for betraying their allies. They subjugate people. They force their religion on others. So they're not the nicest of societies, and of course, and they're monotheistic and they worship a single deity, and anything other than their religion is seen as heresy and paganism to them. So they this bigoted, flawed prince is the highest ranking member left to lead them. So when he takes across the continent, he encounters other nations, cultures, other religions that are in direct conflict with him. So it's kind of a lot of it is a clash of cultures, a fight for survival by the last remnant of these Atalanteans. Will they get wiped off the face of the earth, and is that deservingly so because of their brutal colonial past and the fact that maybe even now that it's just a remnant, they're trying to recreate the society. They may betray their enemies there. They may, become colonizers again. Can they change? Can this flawed character change? Can he overcome his bigotry and his prejudices? What's going to happen? So it's there's quite a bit of political intrigue, some battles. Battle scenes become especially more prevalent as the series goes on. A bit of romance, a lot of world building as you would expect in the type of epic fantasy. So there's the elevator pitch for me.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm excited to get to book two. I love the cover for book two. It's
Oh,
great.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I'm excited to get to that. I'll shift gears here back into the indie world, but you mentioned is it SPFBO?
Yes, self-published fantasy blog on
Okay.
SPFBO.
Okay.
Exactly.
And I've heard some people talk about it, but could you explain like the steps for an author to do it, what a judge does, like all the whole process?
Okay, so I've also been a judge for SPFBO as part
Okay.
of Before You Go blog, and of course I've been a contestant. So essentially, now the rules have changed a bit since my book was entered, even in the short time. I mean, it was not long ago. I was part of SPFBO as a contestant.
Yeah.
But the nuts and bolts is 300 authors get to enter this contest where their book is judged by essentially usually a blog site or a reviewer, and so these 300 authors, they're it's split in the 300 authors. They split them into sections of 30 books each. Each of those 30 books is assigned to a reviewer or a blog site, and these reviewers review these 300 fantasy books. So typically, a reviewer or blog site will review just their category of 30. They may or may not do a full review. They might not read the whole thing. They might read to a point, and then they may or may not continue with it. But the point is essentially in that individual category of 30, there's going to be selected usually out of the 30 books, the blog site reviewer may select 4 or 5 or 6 semi-finalists.
Okay.
So these are the books that are moving on to the next round. So those other books are essentially eliminated from the contest, except for those remaining semifinalists in that blog.
Okay.
And then from those 5 or 6 or 7 semifinalists, then the blog site selects one finalist. So then the other semifinalists are eliminated. So then you have each blog site or reviewer selecting one finalist, and all those finalists then competing against each other to win the ultimate prize, which is a selfie stick. That's the nominal, physical, tangible prize. But there's so many more benefits from that. The exposure,
Yeah.
the credibility of your work. There's been finalists who they were relatively obscure, but then after SPFPO, they had hundreds, if not thousands, of reviews.
Yeah.
Some semi-finalists and finalists, and even books that were eliminated. It's their exposure has led to them getting traditional book contracts, and I
That's
mean it's really, really a prestigious contest. It's grown, it's changed. Um, in the past, it was a first come first serve
okay.
entry. So you submitted and you hoped you're one of the first. As soon as it opened, you're one of the first 300, and essentially the first 300 gone in. That's changed now. It's a bit more of a lottery system. The point is, for a self-published author, it can really be a fabulous, fabulous experience. And the friends you make there of other authors and the connections and bloggers. Like I said, when I got my time to get put out of the contest,
Yeah.
then the editor took notice of me and asked me to join the team. And shout out to the wonderful Beth Tabler, another amazing member of the community. She's also an editor with Grimdark Magazine, of which I'm also a part. And yeah, so I mean, just the camaraderie, the getting a really well crafted and usually typically really in depth review from a blog site that is well respected,
Yeah.
like FanFi Addict or Before We Go blog, is a real benefit, especially to an indie author, right? So even a negative review can really help because if let's just say the blogger didn't really care for your work, but they gave you a detailed review, and then someone else sees that review is like, hey, just my taste, everything the blogger is saying that they didn't like, that's more my taste, so I'm going to buy that book. So there's so many positives.
Yeah.
So I just think it's highly recommended for anyone who's an independent author and wants to put their book out there. So many incredible things can result from being part of SPFBO.
Awesome. Did you enter book one? Was that what you entered in there?
Yeah, I did. You could so just in terms of so I'll get into some of the rules and now please caveat always check the rules the year you're going to enter because the rules are subject to change, right? And they have changed. So you can only enter a standalone fantasy novel, so one of one in a
Okay.
series, or the first book in a series. So
Okay.
you can't enter like I couldn't enter my second book or my third book or like it
Okay.
has to be the first book in a series or a standalone, and it has to be fantasy. And that is again, I know it's subjective in a way, but Mark Lawrence has put a lot of work into, and of course, historically as the contest has evolved, given really definitive rules as to what is fantasy
Okay.
versus, say, for example, science fiction. So, and you also have to make sure that you are independently published. Again, there's parameters around that definition for the purposes of SPFO. You may believe you are, but
Yeah.
then it doesn't meet the SPFBO criteria. So you really have to read the rules And
Okay.
if in doubt, there's lots of online forums and blogs. And Mark Lawrence is the kind of person, if you message him, he'd answer your question too. He's incredibly busy, but he's just a fabulous person. So, you make sure you know the rules before you enter, and go for it, right? And there's no downside, I believe, in entering that contest. And as I said, at the same time, don't go into it for thinking that you're gonna have the ultimate glory that Tor or Orbit is gonna
Yeah.
mess you. Hey, I saw your book, and now I want to offer you a book deal. Like that's a
Yeah.
rare occurrence. So while it's happened, it's very infrequent. So that can't be that shouldn't be your goal.
Yeah.
But just know that these things have happened,
Hmm.
right?
I
So
remember you and Philip were talking about like the different lotteries you have to hit to get a popular book. Like beyond even just writing that whole journey writing, then you got to get a publisher. Like all these things. Same thing with the SPFPO. It's like I mean, to get all the way to that bracket, that's hard. So that's amazing. Thank you for explaining the process of it. Um, this is about your journey, but what was the hardest part for you about being an indie author, or most challenging?
I think for me, the most challenging part is essentially what we're talking about is that, you know, I'm pretty, I won't say I'm extroverted. I'm actually fairly introverted, but I do love people and I love I love human beings. I love interacting with people, and I'm quite comfortable with going on camera or on
Yeah.
a podcast or talking or promoting my book or promoting someone else's book. I don't have any real. I don't have like on a pragmatic level. I don't have a problem with that. On a practical level, I'm able to do it. However, it's not something I like to do. It's not my preference. I
Okay.
would much rather, talk about other people's books and or just
Yeah.
write. However, as an indie author, you do have to do some level if you want to sell,
Yeah.
right? And it depends on to what degree selling is important to you. Like this isn't my full-time job; it's a hobby. At the same time, I do pride myself in writing quality books, and I do want people to read them. So I do make efforts to market and sell. You put an investment as an indie author into your books. You like to see a certain return on investment for that money that you put in. So most of us try to sell our books because we spent money to make them. So I think the hardest part is simply doing all that. Doing all that promotion, doing all the marketing, doing the things that don't necessarily come naturally. I don't have a sales background like my wife has a marketing background, for example.
Okay.
Um, you
I'm a
know,
marketer. I'm a marketer and sales guy in my
well,
job.
there you go. And you'd be fabulous as an indie author. Not sure if you've already written a book or planning to, but
Maybe. Nothing in the works right now, but I mean, the more, sorry to interrupt you, but the more I read, the more I'm starting to get what I like and what I like would love to explore. It's like this, like, it's weird. I've never had a inclination till like recently. I'm like, oh, whoa, like, there's some, like, I just have this feeling, but, all right, keep going.
go for it. All I can say, we can talk offline, but yeah, like go for it. That's what I
Yeah.
say. But in any case, yeah, like so it's almost counterintuitive to go out and be like, "Hey, buy my book, please, buy my book."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but it is something that you need to do. So that's the most challenging part. Not so much because I can't do it, but simply just it's just not my preferred activity.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's the most challenging part.
Okay. This is a question in the perspective of an indie reader. Where would you go to go find like interesting indie books? Like, is it that SPFBO? Like, is that something I should look at? Be like, oh, the winner's here. Okay, let me try that book. Or like, where would you recommend I go as a reader, like wanting to get into more indie fantasy books?
Well, that's an excellent question. SPF was an excellent resource, and it's not all about the finalists and semi-finalists. There's
Yeah.
tons. All 300 books to me are potentially amazing indie reads for certain readers. And I mean, if you want to talk about success, like uh, Ryan Cahill, who is probably
Yep.
right now one of the breakout blow up indie authors out there. I don't think he even made the semifinals in SPFPO. But
Okay.
I mean, look at the kind of sales and acclaim he has going from now. I'm sure he's not particularly concerned about his lack of success at SBFBO because he's one of the most successful indie fantasy authors out there. So
Yeah.
every book in that slot is, but beyond that, go to the blog sites that review and read a lot of indie books.
Okay.
The SFF, sorry, the Before We Go blogs, the FanFi Addicts, all these amazing blog sites
Yeah.
that are typically judges at SBFBO that also read indie fantasy. Go to the BookTube community, YouTube community, and there's tons of booktubers, especially in the spaces that I occupy, who review and review indie books. You know, like there's so many resources
Yeah.
that are out there for you to find really quality indie books online, social media. You're gonna see authors plugging their books, and sooner or later, you'll see a series that will catch your eye, and you'll be like, "I haven't seen that before." What's that? And you find out it's indie, right? So, yeah, there's tons of places you can find really fabulous indie books.
Okay. Awesome. I'll go. Wait, you said, is it FanFi Addicts? You said.
Yeah, a FanFi addict. Before you go block, you know what the really easy way to do it is? Go on Mark Lawrence's SBFBO website
Okay.
and look at all the judges. Like all the books are broken down to the categories, and you'll see who the judges are. Like a lot of those blog sites, they read a lot of indie books.
Okay.
So, but amazing booktubers, like I said, the Philip Chases of the world, the Zachary Shays, the Jake Nerd Risings, the Tory Talks, like Nico's book reviews, you name it. There's dozens of book reviewers
Yeah.
on YouTube as well that you'll find some really good indie books on there.
Yeah. I think that's also a cool thing about BookTube is like I'll go over to Talking Stories channel, and then I saw Tori on there, and it was discussion with Tori, and I was like, "Whoa, she's really intelligent. Like I like to hear. I'm gonna go subscribe to her." And it's like this big circle, like this big network that you create. Um, but same thing with like talking to you. Like I'll talk to you, then I'll talk to this person, this person, this person. It's just like sales and marketing for me. Like it's just networking and being with people, and I love doing that. So I've had fun, but this brings me to my next topic, which is community. And you are the man for this, for sure. Could you talk about your mindset when approaching community, when approaching, again, like you said, how to promote your book without actually promoting it, just being with people, just being yourself. Talk about your mindset because I think it's amazing.
Well, thank you. I'm not the only one that has that mindset. There's people who are far more altruistic than me and give back far, far more than me to the community. I think the best way I can break it down to you is kind of like my full-time job is in law enforcement, and I consider it a service job. I mean, it's there's many jobs out there that are jobs where that you most jobs involve some sort of service. Mine is, of course, in the public service milieu, and it is a job where you must be willing to give of yourself, up into including potentially, sadly, the ultimate sacrifice
Yeah,
is your life.
yeah,
And perhaps a lot of service jobs don't aren't that weighty in terms of the consequences and expectations. But the way I look at it is that okay, that's the worst end, right?
yeah,
That's the worst case scenario. But the best case scenario, which is the vast preponderance and majority of people in jobs like mine, is that you have a really fulfilling career where you get so much more than you give back. You see people of every stripe of life. Unfortunately, you see them sometimes in their worst moments, but you also see them in their best moments. And it's so fulfilling and so enriching, and you get back so much more than you give because on top of, frankly, being interactive, meeting all these amazing, wonderful people, including my colleagues and people in emergency services, etc. I also fairly well paid for it, right? And there's great
yeah,
benefits, and there's a pension, and there's relative job security, and there's overtime, and there's always a downside, shift work, which I don't do anymore because of the position I'm in now in the organization. But being when I was frontline, shift work, and you're missing birthdays and holidays and special events, but at the same time you have a lot of time off and you're able to do certain things in the day that other people can't do, in terms of shopping or banking or errands. Or so, I mean, there's always pros and cons. But what my overall comment is, goal is that I've gotten so much more out of that job and career that I could ever give. And as I get close to retirement, I'm very cognizant of just how blessed I am. And it's the same thing about being a member of the bookish community. If you go out there and realizing that I'm getting so much more out of this than I'm even capable of giving back, then it'll definitely, for most people, because most people are really good people, it just compels you to give more,
Yeah.
right? So if you focus on giving, because you're going to have benefits that you're not even fully aware of
Yeah.
sometimes. If you focus on giving to others, you will always get back. Believe me, if you're the kind of person where you're always, plugging up people's work and reviewing their work and saying complimentary things because you generally feel that way and really
Yeah.
promote it, people are gonna, someone's gonna latch onto your work and like genuinely read it and like it and promote your work like crazy too. That's just the way it is. So, because
Yeah.
that's the kind of community we have. So, if you're focused on giving, you cannot help but receive, right? Without the whole conscious thing, right?
Yeah.
But if you're consciously giving, you know, before you know it, you're receiving tenfold. So,
Yeah. And I think you hit on this a little bit earlier, but personally, what is your favorite part about the book community in general?
that is exactly what you talked about. It's the giving.
Yeah.
It's the people who, like, right now. I have There's a few incredible booktubers led by the wonderful Zachary Shea. Check out his channel, all the channels, all these booktubers, including Jake from Nerd Level Rising, Nikhil from Self Esteem, Dr. Philip Chase, Dave from Recording the Pages page, and they're doing a deep dive into my series. They're
Yeah.
reading each book. They're
I
putting
know.
up.
I feel left out. I'm only on book one. I'm like, I can't watch these. So I'm sad. All right. Keep going, though. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So like they're reviewing my books and doing deep dives. Like it's just,
Yeah.
that's most authors' dream,
Hmm.
especially for a no-name indie author like me. That's a dream,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's directly attributable to the fact that I think one of the reasons why a lot of them have picked up my book is because they felt, I was worth checking out and simply reading and supporting,
Yeah.
right? And then yes, I'm honored they actually seem to genuinely like the book and they're generally into it. And of course, that is the thing that will sustain that kind of, read along, right? I mean, if they didn't like the book, I mean, that would likely fall apart. But they
Yeah.
happen to like the books in the series. They feel that the books are getting better and better each book, and so. But I mean, initially to get that off the ground, I think a lot of it is due to fact that they, frankly, because they felt I was a worthwhile person to do that for. And they want to give back. They want to do something for me, which I'm incredibly stunned and honored, and I feel so grateful for.
Yeah.
Right, and that's not the only deep dive I have. I have one on my channel. I'm joined by people like Jenny Words, who is an absolutely iconic author. Jenny, my friend Taylor from In Between the Pages, another fabulous booktuber. Dr. Leila Goshi, she's a professor. She's wonderful. And then my good friend Alicia from Alicia Birdie in the Books also contacted me a while back. Said, "Hey, I want to do a deep dive into your series too." And she grabbed her friend Jen from who got that book and the amazing epic tales. Here's another great booktuber,
Yeah.
and they have a read along with me. A deep dive with me on Alicia's channel. So I mean, yeah, man. Like when I look at that stuff, it's like, what can you even say, right? What, like, when you get those kind of gifts,
Yeah.
certainly it would compel the average person to. I just want to give back more. I want to, like, look at
Yeah.
what people are doing for me, right? So
Yeah. Speaking of great people, who are some people that have helped you during your writing process? Is there anyone that comes to mind in terms of like a mentor? I know you've mentioned Janny's given some tips. I would love to talk about Janny because every time I listen to her, because I haven't actually talked to Janny before, but um, it's just like wisdom spouts out of her mouth every time she talks. It's so cool. Like I'm just watching these like Sun Eater deep dives that Philip is doing, and just hearing her talk, I'm like, oh, I could sit here for like ever and listen to her. But that's getting on a tangent. But who's someone that's kind of mentored you in writing? Has there been any mentors? Could you talk about that?
Well, certainly, Janie is one of my biggest mentors and examples,
Okay.
right? She is exemplary in every facet of life as a human being, as an author. She's one of the most talented and well-rounded people I know. Like her knowledge of writing, of she is a world-class painter.
Yeah.
She has her own covers. Like, she is an expert in so many fields: equestrian, nautical, music, bagpipes. She's a top bagpiper. I can't even get into all the things that she's she does so well. But most of all, she's such a humble for an iconic writer, and Janie is an iconic writer that came out in the same era as the George R. Martins and the Robin Hobbs and all those. And she's only now getting the acclaim she deserves, I feel, but she is iconic in the same. She should be mentioned in the same pantheon as those writers. And I'm
Okay.
humbled to call her a friend, and I talk to her regularly, and we become close, and she is just fantastic. And a great mentor example. Philip Chase is another one. Dear Doctor Fantasy, another brilliant writer. His series is currently my favorite indie self-published fantasy series of all time. He
Awesome.
is an incredibly intellectual person, wonderful academic, but he's an even better human being, and
Yeah.
he is so kind and so thoughtful and so just someone you just love to be around, right? Miles slash Christian Cameron, another iconic author, one of the most prolific authors I know, another one person I consider to be a friend. He is a brilliant reenactor. He's traveled all over the world reenacting these brilliant battles. And he, again, is another brilliant academic. He's another person who is so rounded. He's been an intelligence officer, like in the real NCIS, like the real thing,
Yeah.
right? He is, again, just an incredible human, though, as well, right? And brings that gravitas and expertise, especially to medieval combat, because, like I said, he's traveled the world creating reenacting these ancient battles and stuff, and he's a real deal. I've been to his house and playing with the swords and stuff,
Yeah.
and seeing the armor. Like, just yeah, he's just. There are so many, Cole. I mean, I'm just naming a couple, but I would take hours to name all of the mentors
Yeah.
and supporters that I've had in those communities. There are just a couple that stand out.
Um, this is a little bit random, but you said something about writing. Is there any type of scene that you enjoy writing, whether it's like action scenes or maybe when two characters are going at it in a political dialogue? Is there anything you really enjoy putting down on the page?
Yeah, political intrigue is the thing that really
Okay.
gets me going, and it's funny because and I'm grateful for this. So don't, and I'm not trying to boast about it, but a lot of my readers, my small but dedicated readership. I'm not some famous author. I have a very small but
Soon to be.
dedicated
Yeah.
readership, but they often rave about my battle scenes, and I'm grateful for that. But that wasn't my focus when I was writing.
Yeah.
I want to write decent ones, but my focus was always George R. R. Martin, one of my favorite authors, talks about those. I'm paraphrasing those conversations those small conversations in quiet rooms, right? Where it's the characters one on one discussing something, and that those conversations are so intriguing, interesting, and the things they reveal about the characters, the things they reveal about the situations and the conundrums that they're facing. Those are my favorite scenes to write.
Okay.
But beyond that, just I know that's a type I like writing endings. I love writing endings. I have to write endings before I finish. Before I write the beginnings of books, I tend to write the last chapter,
Okay.
and sometimes even work my way backwards. And I love writing endings that leave the reader either with some sense of anticipation, like, oh, based on where this finished, I really want to read the next book,
Yeah.
or leave them stunned, breathless, hopefully anticipating again if it's a continuation of a series, but really the ones that impact the reader. I want to write an ending that is impactful. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are favorite type of things I like to write.
Well, book one, I was like, all right, give me book two. Like, I want to see what actually happens. So I'm excited to read book two. So I think you did that well.
Well, thank you. I mean, as an indie writer, I couldn't probably get away with that as a traditional published author, leaving a what some people call a cliffhanger. I prefer incomplete ending. There are certain conventions that traditionally published companies want their writers to adhere to, and I understand they work looking at marketability and what's going to sell, and they have a different set of rules, right? But as an indie author, I always say it's all about being bold and ambitious and taking chances,
Yeah.
right? Because you're allowed to. So I want to do that with my books. I want my books hopefully to be, I don't say trend setting or avant garde. I just want them to be unique and I want them to leave an impact. And I'm enjoying the fact that I'm not constrained right now
Yeah.
by anyone other than my own editor and my professional editor and my wife, who is my first line of editing always, telling me no. So,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
Okay, awesome. All right. I wrote a lot of questions down for just your preferences for reading, and I want to hear some recommendations. So if that's okay, I'm going to ask you a couple things. But what are your favorite books and why, first of all? Because I want to write some stuff down.
okay, so I have so many books that I love. I have two shelves right now. I mean, my wife is allowed two so far. Hopefully, one day we'll see. We'll tell her. But essentially, and it's not because one is better than the other. It's just because I do a lot of delineation between indie and traditionally published for a variety of reasons I'm not going to get into. But behind me is part of my traditionally published shelf.
Okay.
And I've arranged both shelves kind of with like my favorite authors near the upper, just easy to reach. So Janie Wirtz is above my head. I can't give a higher recommendation than her series. It is iconic. It
Yep.
is one of the most brilliant fantasy series ever written. It's a long series, Wars, Light, and Shadow.
Yep.
But worth the investment along, if you read Malazan and Realm of the Underlings and all of the long series, read that one. But anything that she's written, I have some other books from her backlist. Her Cycle of Fire series, or standalones, like To Ride Hell's Chasm, which is my favorite standalone, Master of Whitestrom. Anything by Janie Wirtz, just read it. All her short stories related to her Ethereal universe, just read it. I talked about Miles Christian Cameron. On the other side, across from my own books, his series Trader Sun Cycle, probably he's best known for in terms of fantasy. He writes amazing historical fiction. Read all his historical fiction books.
Okay.
I just read his. Um, I just read a couple of his historical fiction books recently. Fabulous. Just a great, just amazing. Bernard Cornwell's on my shelf. He's another fantastic writer. He's best known for his Saxon stories, which were made into the Last Kingdom TV series, of course.
Oh
He's
wow.
also
I
well
didn't
known
know that.
for the Sharp series, another TV series, historical fiction. His Warlord Chronicles is my favorite current science fiction trilogy, sorry, fantasy trilogy of all time. Some people say it's not fantasy. Some people say it's historical fiction. Some people say historical fantasy, but for me, it's fantasy. It's Arthurian.
Yeah.
It's based on Arthurian legend. That's my favorite trilogy. Like this is among trilogies like Lord of the Rings. Like that's my favorite trilogy.
Okay.
So that says a lot, I think. I got Mark Lawrence up there. Again, the creator of self-published fantasy blog off. His especially his grimdarker series like Broken Empire and the Red Queen's War. Those are some of my favorite series as well. John Gwynn. What can I say about John Gwynn? Another one of the best battle scene writers out there for ancient combat. His Faithful and the Fallen. I mean, if you want characters you're gonna love and root for, and if you like that type of stuff,
Yep.
he's up there. Anna Smith Spark. She writes beautiful, dark, poetic stuff. She's very grim, dark, but a fabulous author. There's so many. I want to talk about the indies though,
Yeah.
because I don't want to. I mentioned obviously, Tolkien and George R. R. Martin. I mean, goes without saying, right? Can't wait
Yep.
to. I'll have to wait till tomorrow to watch the first episode of House of Dragon season 3.
Oh wow.
Starts tonight. I won't be able to get to it tonight, but I'll have to watch it tomorrow at some point. Indies. Tim Hardy, his series, Brotherhood of the Eagle. It's Norse inspired, kind of like John Gwynn, fabulous author. Holly Tinsley, her stuff. She's got the Vanguard Chronicles and also the new one, The Hallows, is absolutely outstanding. It's currently an SPFBO semifinalist. She's in contention to be a finalist with that book.
And her
She's
name's
just
Holly. What's her last name?
Tinsley, otherwise known as H.L. Tinsley. She also
Awesome.
does a lot of amazing stuff on the Spotlight Indie website. Check out everything that she does over there with all of her colleagues. Agent M. Gimson, Mushroom Blues. I actually interviewed him today. He's also now one of the editors for Grimdark Magazine. A fabulous person. He does the SFF Addicts podcast as well. Great series. Von Roycroft. He does his series is inspired by the tribes that took down the Romans, like the Visigoths and the Vandals. His Thunder Nation trilogy is also my top indie trilogies of all time. Philip Chase, I mentioned the Adan trilogy, brilliant. My favorite current indie series going. He's got the sequel, While Darkness Gathers, and he's working on the prequel. Oh, Tamil Akhtar, Gunmetal Gods, brilliant, dark, Eastern inspired fantasy. Can't say enough about that. Sienna Frost, again, brilliant, uber dark, Eastern inspired fantasy. The Obsidian series, Obsidian Awakening and Revelations, her series. L.L. Stevens, her Triumphry with Sordanian. That's really starting to get a lot of. It's getting more and more acclaimed now. She's a really experienced writer. She was traditionally published in the past.
Yeah.
She's just absolutely
I saw
fabulous.
Jake's video on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gary Contaxis. He has his series is fabulous. Loved his novella. Greg is just a great guy. Really slick marketer too. His series Palmer Pickering, another brilliant indie author. She's got Heliotrope, which is a fabulous standalone. I still have to read her sci-fi stuff. That's on my shelf. Krista Matara, Legacy of the Brightwash. That's probably one of the biggest and most popular, I think, indie books out there, along with people like M.L. Spencer, Dragon Mage, her series, phenomenal. Jacob Sanix, he has the Dark Oak series, which is also spectacular. Bjorn Larson, Children, Norse inspired again. Eve Kodruch, she writes more romantic fantasy slash sci-fi. She also writes brilliant police procedural thrillers. Her accent on the cop was, oh my gosh, it was stunning. So she flips over to other subgenres. I'm looking at indie show. Oh well, Daniel Jackson, Illborn, like that series is just incredible. About four characters drawn to this mythic gate. It's just fabulous. Michael R. Fletcher, probably one of the most popular. Let's talk quickly about the OGs. Michael R. Fletcher, one of those popular, and one of the foundational, I think, grimdark indie authors out there. Beyond Redemption, that's probably what it's best known for. It's known as one of the darkest grimdark fantasies out there. Mike Shell, another OG, Ben Galley. These are all indie authors who kind of paved the way for a lot of us that have been writing for a while. Rob J. Hayes, of course, is another fabulous indie author. Read anything. He writes Virginia McLean, another foundational author. L.L. McCrae, brilliant, brilliant. I've been around for a while, right?
Yeah.
They've been doing this for a while. They've been honing their craft, and it really, really fancy, well done. Trudy Skies. I'm just gonna pop out names now because I'll keep.
No, this is good. This is good.
Trudy Skies, Zach Argyle. I think you might like his stuff. If you like Sanderson, it's closer to that
Okay.
kind of magic system. Um, like I said, I could go on. Oh, Sarah K. Ballstrip, love her stuff. She
Okay.
writes dark, really compelling, very intellectual, deep fantasy. Dirk Ashton, another OG, Paternus, the brilliant fantasy there. Like, I mean, there's so many, man. I'm looking at my shelf, and like I said, I could go on and on. Uh, I said, oh, Zamir Zamir Amar, his series is absolutely fabulous. Book of Astea, it's a duology I loved. J.E. Hannaford, SBFBO finalist. She writes all kinds of awesome stuff. Great cover. Just the skin was probably my favorite book for her. It's about Selkies. You don't have to hear about Selkies in fantasy. Tori Tekken, you
Yep.
know about Tori. I love her Bruhai series. It's amazing. Like I said, man, I could go on, but I'd be here all day. So those are just some.
Well, no, thank you. I'm gonna put you on the spot one more time for a rec, but let's make it fun. I'm gonna tell you what I like in fantasy and sci-fi, and maybe like my favorite titles, and then just give me a rec you think I might like. It could be indie, it could be traditionally published, but I wrote down so I love political intrigue, so that's good to hear that your series has a lot of that because that's my favorite thing from Sun Eater. When I read Sun Eater, and there was a ton of that, and I'm a big fantasy fan, of course. So like I just love it. Anything political intrigue, anything with heavy themes, philosophy, um, great action. It's not my number one, but like I'll take some great action scenes. So great action, sci-fi and fantasy, in particular. Um, my favorite books of all time would behind me, if you can see it. Name of the Wind is my favorite book.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
like that's by far. That's how I started reading in 2021. I picked up Name of the Wind, and I was like, wow, like this guy can write. So like Name of the Wind, Sun Eater, Red Rising, those are like probably the big three for me. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, let me know. Is there anything that
Yeah,
kind of
okay. So very different books. I haven't read Red Rising. I've heard a lot of it about that
yeah,
series. Sun Eater, I've heard a lot of about. Have not read it, but of course I have read Name of the Wind, and that book is iconic for me as well.
yep,
So Name of the Wind, because it's almost like a one for one and draws the same influences.
okay,
R.R. Verdi and his Tales of Tremaine, is that the series? But the first binding is the first book in
okay,
that series. So I mean, essentially, it has been compared almost directly to Name of the Wind. So
okay,
he's traditionally published. Yeah, he's exceptionally intelligent fellow. Name of the Wind also, because so much about Name of the Wind is the prose. You got to read Jani's books.
okay,
Read something like a standalone like To Ride Hell's Chasm to get a sense of
yep,
a really good sense of what you can expect in her major series. Um, and I would also say Guy Gavriel Kay, because again, prose is his thing. So read something like Tagana or anything by, anything by Guy Gavriel Clay, because
yeah,
he's a prose master and he does melancholy the way Patrick Rothfuss does melancholy like very few.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, really good at the melancholy
okay.
stuff.
I also love. Thank you for those recs, by the way. But
That's just for Name of the Wind. I didn't give you the other ones.
okay, okay, good, good. I also love dramatic characters. Like that's why I like Kavoth, because like there's a lot to him. He might be lying to us about certain things. Like he's very arrogant, and like I don't like arrogant people, but like people that can like put on a scene, and like I'm watching this character just like his own show. Like I don't know how to describe it. But
Yeah,
it's like the spotlight's on them, and they're just like killing all the scenes. Like I'm like, wow, I could read about them forever. Um, so I like dramatic characters, and Hadrian I would consider pretty melodramatic. I mean, it's talked about in the story a lot, but just to add that there.
okay, well, so you mentioned Name of the Wind. You
Yep.
said Red Rising, right?
Yes.
So, and again, I haven't read Red Rising, but I've heard a lot about it.
Okay.
So, since you've already read Sun Eater and liked it, because I know there's definitely some parallels there.
Yep.
And again, this is a book I haven't read, but everybody, because frankly, Sun Eater is based on books like Red Rising, but also Gene Wolfe.
Okay.
His works are directly like the main character in his series is essentially for like if Christopher Rocco talks about those him basically
Yeah.
basing his main character on that main character. So, I mean, it's Severian based on Hadrian. So, that's definitely I would recommend you read Gene Wolfe
Okay.
because that's the direct. Um, Also, I would recommend like this, the Trempery, L.L. Stevens, Sordanian. You want to talk about a character being like, you know, is someone who is spoiled, arrogant for good reason, very mistrustful for good reason, but very charismatic. You can't look away. He like someone like that kind of character. You have to read something like Sordanian for that.
Okay.
Uh, I would also say now again you there are some very very morally gray characters, but you know I recommend like there's characters in Gunmetal Gods, I think, by Zamil Akhtar that I think you probably go for. Um, Character that pretty well takes over the show. Oh well, Price of Power by Michael Michelle.
Okay.
His character, Prince Bourdain, he's pretty, he's like that too. I would say Mark Lawrence, Jorgenka, detestable character, but very charismatic. You can't look away. That kind of, um, read. This is more historical fiction, but read the Saxon stories. Uhtred of Bebbanburg is a beloved character that also can be pretty harsh and has a very harsh side, but it's compelling and it's first person and yeah, I think he's really um, you know, I mean,
Maybe Othron.
well, that's yeah, that's my own. But I'll stop there with that one. And then the third book. So you said Name of the Wind. Um, Sorry, what was the third rec?
It was Sun Eater and Red Rising. I've also read. I really enjoyed Stormlight.
Stormlight
Stormlight
Archive.
Archives.
Yeah.
Um, Also, to the left of me, have you read Vinland Saga?
No, no.
So, I'll go back to some of the other stuff you said earlier too, but anything Norse inspired, I think I would like, just because Vinland Saga takes place in like a Viking era,
So
and
you got to
I
read John Gwynn. You got to read John Gwynn.
okay,
You have to read John Gwynn, and you
okay,
have to read Tim Hardy. Those are like some of my biggest recs for Norse inspired, like action, like day in the life Viking type
yep,
analogous to Viking type society. You definitely have to read those.
okay,
Um, like I would say. mm, Yeah, and I mean, again, I'm going to recommend Bernard Cornwell, Last Kingdom, because it's basically the Britons versus the Vikings. Like, so, you get a lot of that in
okay,
there. So I think you'll love that world.
yeah.
Yeah, so those are probably some of my biggest recs for that.
Do you have a number one author? I don't know if you said it. I
Jenny
don't know.
Words.
Okay, number one. Okay,
Jenny Words.
awesome.
Jenny Words, if you want to rank my top 10, I'd say just loose top 10. Like, I'm not,
Yeah,
like, Jenny Words, the number one. The rest, I'd say Christian Cam is number two, but the rest pick and choose. Like
yep,
uh, Guy Gavriel Kay, Bernard Cornwell, Stephen Erickson. Oh, there's another brilliant Malazan, Book
yeah,
of the Fallen. Mark Lawrence, George R. R. Martin, Tad Williams, um, Annis Spark, uh, Joe Abercrombie.
okay,
Um, you know, you know, you're those are a lot like those are top 10-ish, like
yeah,
Jenny's number one and then there's no one close,
yeah,
but there's some authors that those are all must buy authors. Like in
okay,
other words, I will buy and read almost anything that they write and almost everything they write. I plan to read if I can.
okay. Question: What are good places to start for Mark Lawrence and Guy Gavriel Kay?
Guy Gavriel Kay, I would say Tigana gives you a really good. It's probably one of those books that most people really like.
Okay.
Um, I think it's a wonderful book for GGK. I haven't read it yet. I hear the Lines of Our Son is another one that is one of his best. I personally like the Sarantino mosaic the best, which is um, Sailing to Sarantim and Lord of Emperors.
Okay.
But that's the hot take. I think
Okay.
most people, a lot of people like those too, but I think Tigana and the Lines of Our Son are probably the books that he's most known for.
Okay.
Sorry. So with Mark Lawrence,
Yep.
if you like flawed characters and brutal action, then read Broken Empire. If you like a lot of humor and the whole buddy bro kind of bromance thing, read Red Queen's War. If you like the whole school, like magic slash assassin school,
Yeah.
read read the Book of the Ancestor.
Book of the Ancestors.
Um, yeah,
Awesome. Do you plan on reading Red Rising at all?
I do. It's I'll be honest, it's middle priority. It's not top priority because I think
Okay.
for me, like I know what I'm drawn to, and
Yep.
I think I would really like Red Rising. But I'm very much drawn to. I know it's a fast read. I hear it's a fast read,
Yeah.
and I hear that it's it's very dramatic, which I'm gonna like. But I'm very much trying to read. Like I'm trying to read my shelves, and I'm also trying. I don't have any books by Pierce Brown on my shelves. I'm also trying to finish series,
Yeah.
so that's one of my goals. I've really tried to curtail my book buying. You
Yeah.
know, if I have like two books in series, I don't have the third. Like, what am I doing? Like, and it's a trilogy. Trying to buy that
Yeah.
trilogy or find that trilogy, online or library and just read it. Right? Like, I'm a
Yeah.
completionist, so it's like just trying to do that stuff. Like, I have priority series that I want to read because say I read the first two books or whatever, and it's like I gotta finish that, right?
Okay.
Like, excuse me. Right now, I'm trying to read as much Guy Gavriel as I can because I just love his work,
Yeah.
right? I'm trying to. Oh, here's another series. Whew. I think I have the whole series now. I'm trying to read R. Scott Baker's Second Apocalypse.
Okay.
Um,
I've
I
heard Philip talk about that before.
I absolutely love the first book. It is dark as hell,
Okay.
like nihilistic, pretty well
Okay.
dark, but
Yeah.
the writing is just impeccable. The world, like everything, is just so. That's the part. That's my next reason. I'll get back to that series because I only read the first book, and I think it's like 7 books right now, and I can polish that off hopefully this year. I really want to get back to L.L. Stevens series. With Triumphant, I read Sardinia, absolutely loved it. That series, I know it's going to be just incredible. I want to finish it off. I started reading Robin Hobb, one of Robin Hobb's trilogies. Loved it. The first two books, I think I'd loaned up the third one. I got to get the third one
Yeah.
back and read it, right? Um, there's so many books out there that like I can't like. I I have a obviously 57, God willing, spare me a long life and let me be able to read into my 80s and 90s, then
Mhm.
um, there's so many books I want to read, right? My mom is 91,
Yeah.
and she talks about, and she's an avid reader, and she talks about, man, all the books that, she goes, I guess I'll never get to read, but I wish I did, right? And so, yeah, I'm focusing on books and series that are priorities that I really want to read and you know, getting them done.
Okay.
Plus my own writing. Same time.
Yes.
I'm trying to finish. I'm writing book seven of a 7 book series. So,
Hmm.
you can imagine trying to stick the landing.
Yeah.
You feel that pressure, right?
Yeah.
Um, I hope I can. I think I can. But, it's not up to me. It's up to the readers who will look back and say whether or not I closed it out well. So,
I have a question about your writing. So I've heard, and I said this in my review, but I've heard many people say each book gets better as you go. have you yourself noticed that like change in the writing, or is it you just working on your craft? You don't really see that. Like, does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a wonderful question. No, honestly, I don't like. It's almost like I feel that empirically I'm getting better. I don't have data
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
say, and I
Yeah.
don't. I have favorite books in my series that probably aren't other people's favorites. Like
Okay.
everything's subjective, right? You may like one book that someone else hates, and or vice versa. But to be honest with you, my goal is continuous improvement, and I hope most authors, and I think most authors are the same. They're striving to get better with each book, but better is a nebulous thing, right? Like
Hmm.
better is like I think there's technical aspects to writings that people acknowledge are better, but then there's also, the aspect of just like for me, it all comes down to storytelling, right? Because people can forgive technical aspects, I think, if the storytelling is really captivating. Not that you shouldn't focus on technical aspects because you should. I'm just saying that like what I look for in a book is a really good story, right?
Yeah.
And I look for compelling themes, but most of all, I think probably prose is my number one thing that's my vehicle, right? That's my gateway into the book. So if you write good prose, I mean, you probably have me, right, in
Yeah.
terms of really being loving the book. But do I think I'm getting better? I don't know. That's not for me to decide. I know this much that further on the series, I have books that have become my favorite. Like the book that I just wrote, A Black Dragon Unread, is my current personal favorite in my like it's of six books that I've written, that's
Okay.
my favorite. It won't be a lot of people's favorite, I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
but one of the reasons my favorite is because the things I get to reveal. Another one of my reasons why my favorite is because it ties so many loose ends together. Um, and I think my writing has become more, still hopefully the prose a bit elevated, but in some ways more simplistic and accessible,
Yeah.
which wasn't something I really aimed for before, but now I think like I think I'm working on being better, but I don't always know what that means. The reader will tell me if I'm getting better.
Okay. Um, so you said your current favorite is the one you just wrote.
A
Has
black
it
dragon on red
always
six.
has it always been that every time it's come out, or has it been
No,
okay? What was
no.
it before that one?
Before that one, I would probably say A Lion's Pride,
Okay.
which is book four.
Four. Okay.
And again, I think it's the biggest book in the series so far. There's so many elements of that book that people might not like. There's a
Yeah.
time jump. Some people don't like time jump. Some people don't mind. Um, there is a lot of things revealed, which is I love doing as an author. Like you
Yeah.
keep all these things close to the chest, and then later on, the readers, oh wow, that was what was going on. It's also there's a lot of not just political intrigue, but the battles are big scale. Like I said, my battles aren't my focus, but I think there's some of the best build up to battles because that's what I love, the
Yeah.
build ups to battles, and then the thing explodes. There's a lot of that, and it's very twisty, turny. Like you don't really know what's coming next, right? And I think that, like the sixth book, which is the book I'm talking about,
Yeah.
I love that. I love keeping the reader guessing, maybe a bit off balance, and just hopefully having a satisfying payoff. And that's the other thing too. I think some of the payoffs in Alliance Pride, my book four, and my book six that I just wrote, I think you get the best payoff. You get great payoffs in book two. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, but I think the payoffs are what make me love. And until that, my favorite book before that was Drowned Kingdom. I think because of
Yeah.
my baby. It's my first one. It's the one where it all began. It's not perfect, but I like to think it's somewhat inventive, and it sets you on the course, right,
Yeah.
of this big adventure that the main character and his people are going through. So
Okay. Can I ask you minor spoiler questions?
yeah, of course,
Okay.
absolutely.
So if you're watching and you don't want minor spoilers, I'm gonna go into some stuff about characters. But um, when you were writing your main character, did you know he was gonna always start out this way? Like,
Absolutely, yeah,
okay,
yeah, absolutely, yeah. He is a an amalgam of people I've met in my life,
yeah,
people I've known personally, people I haven't known well but have met,
okay,
different ancient rulers, a
okay,
bunch of them. And yeah, so he's this hodgepodge of real people who existed, and yeah, I always knew he was going to be flawed. I knew he was going to be bigoted. I knew he was going to be racist, misogynistic, homophobic,
yeah,
intolerant of other religions. That was very purposeful,
okay,
and that's in line with the themes I was trying to explore. And I always wanted to write him realistic, that he would be like all of us. We're all flawed human beings. We never really see our flaws as plainly as other people see them.
yeah,
We're all hypocritical to a certain extent. And we all are very sure of ourselves and our judgment and our moral high ground and our, and that is partially an element of our upbringing, how we were raised, and you name it, a million things, right? But I also wanted him to possess great qualities, which even I think the people that most people would characterize as being not great people. I'm not talking about outright evil, but people would characterize as being perhaps not have noble qualities.
yeah,
Almost everybody has some noble qualities, right?
yep,
So I wanted a complicated, flawed, realistic hero that embodied those characteristics, and I thought that watching his journey towards potential change, like how much will he change? Will the change be like great, small? Will he start making progress, backslide? Like, because that's realistic too, right? Because few people just, oh, I've changed, and the
yeah,
light to the light, and now I'm a different person, right? Like that
yeah,
doesn't really happen. So in my experience,
yeah,
not saying it can't happen, but I think that's infrequent.
yeah,
So yeah, I always wanted him to be like that, and I think a character like that, hopefully, if he's written well enough, can be compelling. Um,
yeah,
and again, something that I could never get. Like I've read lots of unlikable characters in traditionally published fantasy, but a lot of traditional publishers also, oh well, your character has to be a bit more redeeming. That like it's hard to write a really unlikable character, although some of the best characters historically in fiction period have been somewhat unlikable and
yeah.
compelling. So I wouldn't have written them any other way.
I think this is gonna turn out good for me because I love Kavoth, and I feel like there's a large amount of people that hate Kavoth just just because he can be unlikable because he thinks everyone around him is lower than him, and it's like I don't know. So maybe I have a thing for unlikable characters. I don't know, but I'm excited. Could you give me any sort of tease into book two? Like what sort of stuff am I gonna get into with book two?
Well, book two is much more action packed, at least in the front end of the book,
Okay.
probably up until the middle. Um, book two is very much authoring. If you remember the way book one ended, he's taken on this task, this mission. Excuse me, and because of the role he plays, he's almost like playing a backseat role,
Yeah.
and that's challenging for him because if you read the book, you know that he may not take that well. And this is something that the missions are taken has very little chance of success. It's very, very, very stupidly daring, right?
Yeah.
To the point where like, wow, you're risking that like this way. Um, but that's the kind of person he is, and he will learn a lot about himself in book two, and his excuse me, his goals. Book two is all about the title of the book. All my titles have a lot of meaning and purpose. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where, one way or another, the Atlanteans will cease to exist as they were. Either they will become something else and survive intact, but be something else, or they'll be wiped from the face of the earth probably. So
Yeah.
that's why it's the last of the Atalanteans. Like no matter what happens to them, they will be either transformed and changed, and while the core essence will be there, they won't be really Atlanteans anymore, or they will be wiped out. So
Okay.
that's and the questions I raise are, should they be wiped out? That's kind of you you get a peek behind the curtain in certain things. Is like, does this society even deserve to
Yeah.
survive? And but if they do, can that be a positive thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big focus there.
Yeah. No, I think that was one of my favorite parts of book one. It's like this colonial empire moving into this new country. It's like I don't know how I would react. I would be like, "Whoa!" So that definitely was a topic I liked explored. So I'm excited for book two. Um, I just want to say thank you for joining me. This has been amazing. I knew I was going to enjoy it ever since I saw the chat with Philip. I was like, I want to talk to this person so bad. So thank you again for joining. Um, and I can't wait to talk again. This was amazing.
Well, I'm so incredibly honored. It was wonderful to talk to you, Cole. Thank you so much. Feel very humbled to be here. I thanks for the kind words. I do hope you enjoy book two. Like I said, it's if you like the action side, there's a lot more of that. But there's I don't think I've I've been you know I've the political intrigue. I haven't skipped on that. It's still very much there, and there's a lot. The lore is there, and there's a lot of and I think character work done. You really get to see the character in a unique position that I think hopefully brings out some other elements of what they're about. So hope you like it if you
Yes.
do read it.
Oh, and thank you again for all these recommendations because I do want to explore some of this indie stuff, but even things like Guy Gabriel Kay and Jenny Wirtz, like I've heard about, but this is good to hear from you that you have high praise for them. So
Oh,
I'm excited.
absolutely. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy some of those recs if you get to them.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.